I'm going to go to our distinguished young alumni to give that presentation. We start with Mr. Moghrabi, and his talk is on engineering, vision, leadership, perseverance, outstanding success.
George encouraged us all to use software. I don't like to do that, sorry. I'm just going to say what comes to mind. I like to do it standing on my feet without the computer presentation. First of all, thank you very much for having us here. Distinguished members of the faculty, distinguished visitors, and the people at the back, the young students looking at us all saying, these people are dreaming and they're talking, but we can't really relate. I assure you're going to relate at the end of this small speech. I was told that I should be talking about myself very briefly, what I've done. George didn't do that, but I'll follow the instructions. I'll talk about my career very quickly. Then I'll move on to talk about engineering and leadership and a little bit about the future. I graduated in 1995 from this school. With distinction. I'm very happy to have studied here because that really opened up many doors for me. I went to the University of Austin at Texas to finish my master's degree, the thesis part that is. Yes, and during that time I was studying masters, and at the same time I joined Dar Al-Handasah. I think you all know Dar Al-Handasah, or most of you know it. I worked in Lebanon at the very beginning. And thereafter, I moved to many regions with Dar Al-Handasah, the Gulf, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Qatar, London, Yemen, believe it or not, for a while. So I moved around a lot and moved up from being a junior engineer to slowly up the ranks, project manager, and then ultimately I was managing very large-scale projects in Dubai and in the Gulf region. At some point in time, you stop learning. You just repeat what you know. So this is the time when you say, I need to move on. And this is the time I moved, actually. In 2003, I came back to Beirut after having spent some time in Qatar and the Gulf and joined Parsons Brinckerhoff PB. It's an American consultancy firm based in New York, One Penn Plaza. I worked in Beirut for the European Investment Bank funded projects, مع CDR. We did some highway projects and what have you. Then in 2005, with the very unfortunate disaster that happened, the assassination of Rafiq Hariri, the Americans are always, of course, cautious on what to do and where to have their offices. So they decided to close shop in Beirut, unfortunately. We moved our offices and we went to Dubai. Now, in Dubai, I started working on the very large-scale project that many of you might have heard about, which is the Palm Jumeirah with Nakhil. Has anyone not heard about Palm Jumeirah? You have not heard about Palm Jumeirah, Dr. Ghaddar. Okay, it's an island that looked like a palm tree in the middle of the sea in Dubai. You can see it from the satellite, but you're not going to go into a satellite. You can see it in here. You're most welcome. That's a promise. You're invited, and I will hold that promise. So this is a very large-scale project. It's a huge island, palm-shaped island for Nakhil. I was directing that project. Now, what I've learned here in the engineering school regarding the systematic and analytical thinking really came into play at that time. I didn't remember all the details about, I didn't need to remember all the details about, the formulae and what have you, but what I did apply is how to manage more than 50 contractors and subcontractors and in excess of 75 consultants and subs. And you have government entities on one side, you have investors on the other side, and people who have bought units and villas and apartments and given promised dates of delivery. So all these factors that none of them played into your favor, actually we had to manage. And we actually managed that, and we delivered the project on time. Of course, I can sit and tell you stories and stories about the challenges we had. Of course, we had a great team. Obviously, I was not alone. But I was managing that team. following that delivery, successful delivery of the project, and by pure chance, the world is a small place, there was a company that I had not heard of at that time. It's called Tamir Holding. Now, who has not heard of Tamir? Not you, Dr. Ghaddar. No, maybe many of you have heard about it. Some of you may not have. I mean, so Tamir is a real estate developer, يعني مطور عقاري بالعربي. So they build large-scale projects from buildings to cities in the Gulf and in the Middle East and Northern Africa mainly. I joined Tamir as Director of International Operations. What does that mean? That means that I had to manage the portfolio of developments in the UAE. Sorry, it was not the UAE at that time. I started by doing the international part, which is outside the UAE. So I was managing projects in Saudi Arabia, Libya, Yemen, Jordan, and what have you. Now, the portfolio at that time was $30 billion of projects. So this is the value of the projects. This is not how much money I have, but I will. I was managing that. So at that point in time, we worked for about a year, and then I may have been doing something right, and they promoted me to a senior director and member of an executive committee. So I added the UAE to my portfolio, and I was managing the entire Tamir organization from the development side. Of course, there is a chairman and a CEO, and I was third in line reporting to the board of directors. So the portfolio then moved to what Dr. Hajj mentioned at the beginning, to become 50 billion US dollars. And we kept doing that for about 2 years. The challenges were many, but the experience was great. And you would tell me, what did you learn in the engineering school that you've applied? I'm not like George in the more of the research and academic still world and linked to that world. So I didn't need to be using all the courses that I learned here in the engineering school. I did in the beginning when I was in Dar Al-Handasah, absolutely. I was applying all my engineering knowledge. But at some point in time, you move to become a manager, and you start wearing a tie, and you become, you have a bigger office. But that means that you would really need to know what you're managing, because obviously otherwise you will not be able to manage it properly. So we have engineers, we have all these people around us, and we delivered the job. We delivered many projects. We built cities. We're building a city in Libya. Libya might sound scary to some of you, but it's actually a very lucrative place to be. There's business there. It's nice, and it's safe now. Yemen as well, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Qatar, all these places. We're building cities, 10 million square meters, 20 million square meters. Just to give you an order of magnitude, the Solidaire area is 1 million square meters. So we're building cities like 5, 10, 20 times the size of Solidaire. They're all in progress now. It's a very nice challenge. You've got the finance side, you've got the engineering side, you've got the investors from one side, and so on. Now, after having spent these 2 years or 2.5 years with Tamir, I can't say that I stopped learning, but the thing is, I started realizing that there's a gap in the supply chain. You graduate from university, engineering, because we're all talking about engineering here. You apply your engineering skills in a design firm. Then you move up and you become project manager, like I was for the Palm Jumeirah, that Dr. Ghaddar is invited to. And then you go and become a developer, and you start developing large-scale projects. But all throughout this, I have started noticing that there's a gap in the supply chain. And that gap is actually, and I refer now to George again here, to be a pioneer in something, you have to have some leadership skill. You have to have some guts. I'm just going to use that term. The gap is in the development management. What does that mean? A real estate developer, you're building a large-scale project. You can get the financing. It's not difficult, believe it or not. You can get hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars, which we have done, from various entities, investment banks and individual investors and what have you. But how do you transfer that money into something that you build? You can't just be an engineer to do that. Development is a whole range of exercises. It's the engineering, it's the marketing, it's the sales, it's the finance, it's the whole life cycle. There isn't a single company in the world, and I challenge all of you to find one because you will not be able to, that does development management, not project management, but development management. And I discovered that, of course, over time, that there isn't anything called development management. 15 years ago or 20 years ago, if you would come to any developer or engineering firm, you tell them, let's have a project manager on board. They would probably laugh and say, why do you need a project manager on board? I am the owner, I have some money, I'll go to an engineer, give him this money, and he will build my building, for example. Why do I need a third entity to come in and pay them money to manage the job for me? Now, there isn't a single project that does not have a project manager. Why? Because projects have become larger in scale, and they are numerous now, so people who have money are doing many jobs at a time. They need somebody to manage all that for them. Taking this to the next level of development management, it is project management plus the marketing, the finance, the sales. You want to sell that property, don't you? You build it, do you want to sell it? At the end of the day, you want to get your investment back, your money back. There isn't. I thought very much about it, and I said, I'm doing so well in Tamir. I'm proud to have been in Tamir. Why would I want to leave? I'm getting well paid. I'm getting the prestige that I would like. I am challenged every day. But why would I want to leave it and start something on my own and have this large risk? And this is, again, I refer to George one more time. At some point in time, you just take that risk, and you say, he said, at the beginning they laughed at something that he was doing. This is true. These are the normal steps. They say that first, they laugh at you. Then they fight you when you become more and more. Then you succeed. They laughed. Many people laughed. Said, you're crazy. You're leaving this nice big company. You're in a very good position. You've got hundreds of people, etc. I said, I'm going to do that. I left Tamir, and I opened a new company called Kaizen Management Consultants. This is a development management company. Kaizen is a Japanese term, by the way. I'm very much into the Japanese culture, from martial arts and what have you. Japanese term Kaizen means continuous and perpetual improvement. Improvement of everything, of yourself, of your surrounding, of people who you love, of your work, improving everything in your life. This is the concept of Kaizen. Kaizen Management Consultants, now I've opened this firm. I had no clue where I would start or who I'd start with. In a very short period of time, which is about a month or 6 weeks now, alhamdulillah, we are now managing projects in excess of $5 billion. Where did this come from? It didn't come out of thin air, because of the people that we knew before, people whose trust we've gained over these years of working with Tamir and Nakhil and what have you, and the Palm Island. So now we are actually offering services to those people who have a lot of money and maybe some land and don't know what to do with it, or do know what to do with it. They want to build it, but they don't know how. So we come and do the whole thing for them. We hire the engineers, we hire the project managers, we hire the consultants who will do the marketing for them and the advertisements of their companies and of their projects, I mean. And then the sales. What sale price? How much of it do you sell now? How much do you sell later? And so on. It's extremely interesting, a lot of fun, and good money as well. Not at the beginning. You shouldn't look for money at the beginning, but money is by itself a means to an end. It's not an end by any means. So Kaizen Management Consultants is now up and running, and I'm very happy to be the CEO and founder of that, and we're slowly staffing up. Now, in the meantime, also during those past 6 weeks, a lot of things have happened. The founder and president of Tamir Holding had resigned from Tamir and started his own company, also a real estate developer, but larger than Tamir. It's called Nobles Holding. Now, of course, I knew him from the days that I worked with Tamir. He called upon me and said, do you want to manage my company? I said, I'm doing something on my own now. He said, that's fine, you could do both. I said, okay, I can do both. So he hired me as CEO of his company, and now we're in 7 different countries and moving extremely fast. So it's all looking good at the moment. But in that respect, I'm done with myself now, so you can wake up. In that respect, we cannot ignore the current global crisis, economic and financial crisis. It's true we're engineers, but we're in the middle of this, not just in the Gulf, but all over. We've got huge institutions like Lehman Brothers and AIG and what have you, who have gone bankrupt overnight. This is a big alarm bell for all of us. Now, fortunately for us, we have a person who is the governor of a central bank here, who was wise enough many months ago to say that let's limit our expenditure in the real estate sector for the local banks. So the local banks in Lebanon, believe it or not, are among the safest now. So you can keep all your money there. You don't have to worry about it. Hopefully you haven't invested in Lehman Brothers or AIG, any of you. Now, why am I saying that? Today, what we have to look at is how to apply our engineering skills and leadership skills in this very difficult world that we live in now, especially now, bankruptcies, banks closing, stock market crashing all over the place in the Gulf and otherwise, and the real estate market, I will refer to Dubai specifically. Dubai specifically, as many of you may know, has been booming for the past many years. We've made money for people. We've developed projects for people, a lot of that. But they kept saying, people keep saying, when you say engineer, unfortunately people joke about engineers sometimes that they are predictable, they are boring, they are too straight line. Yes, it's true. We are predictable, absolutely. But I'll tell you what, I cannot remember the figure, so I will not want to quote a wrong figure. How many engineers are now being hired by the banks who are going very slowly towards bankruptcy, by real estate developers who are very slowly going into, out of business, engineers to manage their businesses for them. Why? Because we engineers have learned to become analytical and very scientific and systematic in our approach and thinking. I'll refer to some banks that I remember the names of. BNP Paribas, Rasmala Investment Bank, Credit Suisse, HBOS. These are large banks and large investment houses. They are slowly getting rid of the boring finance people and getting in boring engineers that they keep referring to boring to fix the problem for them, and it's working. Of course, this is not a blanket statement and no disrespect to finance people by any means. We have to learn finance, we have to do it. But this is actually happening as we speak. It's not my opinion. I'm very proud to be an engineer. I'm not saying that this is the only field that one will succeed in and this is the best thing in the world. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that engineers have a lot to add. And we are doing that as we speak now. We are saving a lot of people, a lot of losses. And we are making a lot of money for other people. I'll give you another example. During this crisis, a lot of people have lost money in the real estate sector. I keep talking about real estate because this is my field and this is what I know how to do best. People who can come out of the real estate market, al-aqarat, people who have bought an apartment or a villa, for example in UAE or otherwise, just as an investment to sell it very shortly afterwards and get some profits back. A lot of people have done that in the past. And so have I. A lot of people now are losing money. If you get out with 20 to 30% loss of your capital, you'll be fine. You're happy because people are losing a lot more. If you come out with your capital back, you're doing great. The boring engineers have been advising investors and real estate developers and have been making profits in these times. It's not because we're geniuses. It's because we are systematic and analytical in our approach. We look at the risks and we make sure to mitigate them properly before they happen. I'll give you an example which is practical. If you have $100 to invest, of course the figures are many more zeros, but just for simplicity. If you have $100 to invest, all these finance people and all these big investors who thought they were big investors, it's not really, something that to be proud of if you're doing a lot of money, if making a lot of money in a boom time. Everybody makes money in a boom. But in the hard times now, this is where the real wise investor comes in. So if you have $100, people used to invest the entire $100 from day one in the real estate market or what have you. The engineers invested only 50. Why? Why do you keep that other 50? The $100 that was invested, true, will make more money in return when they sell because you buy more for $100, you get more. If you invest only 50 and expect bad times to happen like what happened now and what is happening now, when you cannot go back and sell that property that you bought, you have another 50 to continue your payments towards that property, or you have the other 50 to buy another property that is now going down by that smart person who bought and spent all his money and now trying to get rid of it at any cost. What I'm trying to say is engineers are analytical, engineers manage risk very properly, and the figures don't lie, and the figures regarding investments and profits don't lie. The figures regarding how many engineers are being hired as consultants to those bankrupt or going bankrupt banks and investment houses don't lie. I'm very proud to be an engineer. Now, I will just finish by saying one thing. I said, Dr. Hajj mentioned that I mentioned perseverance in my talk. There's no going wrong. My father here keeps saying this to me, and has been saying this to me ever since school days. I didn't understand it before, but now I do. Persevere. You can't go wrong by working hard. You simply cannot go wrong. Hard but smart, of course. A lot of people work hard but don't get the return. Perseverance means you have to work hard at what you want. And sometimes you may work hard but find out that this is not really what you want. It's okay. You will never lose. Move. Do something else. George also mentioned that. Try your best in what you're doing now. If you don't like it, fine, you can change, you can move. But work hard. Give it your best shot. You won't go wrong. There's a very nice story that I'll just close with. It's an anecdote. It's about a frog. Frog, nafda'a. It's deaf. It's a deaf frog. Does anyone know about the deaf frog? Good. The story goes like this. There was a race called one day for frogs to climb Mount Everest. The frogs had to climb Mount Everest. And there were spectators, spectator frogs sitting on the side. And the race started. So the frogs started climbing, all of the frogs, and their fellow frogs are cheering and clapping and actually discouraging them all because you cannot climb Mount Everest. You're a frog. Sorry, they're a frog, not you. Then the frogs started falling off one by one. You know, this would go a few meters and fall off. The other would go a few more meters and fall off, and so on. And the crowd was just, saying, "Boo, you can't make it, and you can't make it." There was this one frog that kept going up, and the others falling apart and falling out. And that one frog made it up to the top, to Mount Everest. And then press conference. The frog comes and they're talking to that frog, and congratulations, you made it, etc. The frog is not responding. It turned out that the frog was deaf. And it was deaf, luckily, which meant that it did not hear the discouragements. It did not hear all the negative statements that you can't make it and you can't do it. It actually made it. Actually, I would like to be that deaf frog. Not literally, of course. Thank you very much. Thank you.